Disclaimer: the hosts of this podcast, Timothy Patrick and Will Foley, are by no means medical professionals. However, having lived experience with mental illness themselves, they have gained useful perspectives on common mental health issues that some of us struggle to overcome on a daily basis. By sharing their stories, they hope to create connection. By creating connection, they hope to help you find your purpose. And through purpose, we can all begin to build the foundation for positive mental health. This is Above Ground Podcast.
Are you ready to lace up your boots, throw up your horns, and jump into the pit? Then let's stomp the stigmas of mental illness. It's time for Above Ground Podcast. Now, Will Foley and Timothy Patrick.
Hey, welcome to episode 94 of Above Ground Podcast. Above Ground Podcast, because you can't serve below. How you doing out there? I hope you're all well, safe, and above this week. We got a really good one. We are talking to a first responder, a mental health advocate, a staunch vocal stigma crusher himself, Rob Leathen. From Canada, man. He's a firefighter, first responder, and wow, visceral artist. He takes like pictures and he creates this very visceral artwork about PTSD and the dangers of it for first responders. And he's a firefighter, and wow, what a story he's got. It was a great conversation. So we're gonna have that up in a short time here, but first I wanted to talk to you. It's almost t-shirt time. It's almost t-shirt weather, and it's even getting to be t-shirt weather here in the great Northeast. And you know what I'm talking about. You got to get yourself a Above Ground Podcast t-shirt. Above Ground Podcast. Be well, be safe, be above, says on the back. Thanks to Close Knit Company. That's right, Close Knit Company. Our friends Dan and Natalie and down in Florida, man. You know, gotta support. Don't forget closeknitco.com. Go to CollabX and check out a t-shirt or hoodie. So when you go to the beach this year, you'll be all sporting. And it's great being able to team up with them. So please support. And don't forget everything, man. Thank you so much for listening. And you can check us, out on the socials at Above Ground Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and Above Ground Pod on Twitter. Oh yeah, and Above Ground Podcast on Tumblr if anybody uses Tumblr. I don't really keep up with our Tumblr except for just episodes, but I should probably figure out if anybody even uses it out there. But if you do, check us out. Also, we're working on some stuff here behind the scenes in the 518, so we might have some cool news pretty soon. We're working on some stuff here, so if you dig what you're hearing, you know how to do it. Crush us out there in the follow lands or whatever. But thanks again, man. So it's time for Uncomfortably Numb with our guest Rob Leathen. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Above Ground Podcast. Above Ground Podcast.
Because you can't serve below.
You know who that is. You down with TPP.
Come on, Will. That's all you got for me?
Yeah, dude. That's all I got this morning. It's the deep voice morning. The deep voice morning radio DJ voice today.
Yeah, you know me.
Yeah, you know me. So, dude, we're on Zoom, so that can only mean one thing.
Another interview.
You got it, man. Another interview. And I'm super happy that Tim landed this one because this should be awesome. This afternoon or this morning, oh my God, I don't even know where I am. We're going to be talking to Rob Leathen from Canada. Rob is a firefighter, mental health advocate, speaker, writer, and a great artist, man. It's incredible stuff. So, Rob, thank you very much for joining us this morning, man. It's a pleasure to have you.
Well, thanks for having me as well.
So, where do we begin, man? Let's find out what your story was all about to get you to the point that you are, man.
Let me just let me just cut in for 1 second. I just one of the I guess one of the variables in reaching out to Rob was for me was that he is outspoken and trying to do the same thing as we are, which is stomp out the stigmas of mental illness. And he does probably a lot more good things than I see, but just the things that I see, he's in line with what we're doing. And I find it great that, we can find people like him that will speak up and speak out and, do their part, I guess.
So, yeah. You know what, Tim, I say it on my website. It's sort of like my tagline is, I firmly believe that silence does nothing but strengthen stigma. So, you know what, if that's what I believe, it sort of motivates me to not be silent. So yeah, I'm pretty open about my battles, my journey, the good points, the bad points, the dark times. I'm open about it because you know what, the more we talk about it openly and publicly, the more we normalize the conversation around mental health and first responder suicide. And it should be no different than how we talk about our favorite sports team or what we had for dinner last night or the weather. And
exactly.
That's where that's where I'm trying to help us get to.
I like it. Wow.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great, man. We're on the same page with you. So tell us how you got involved in first response part of side of things, as opposed to something else. There had to be something that drew you to that, I'm sure.
If you ask all the mental health professionals, yeah, it was from my traumatized childhood, seeing as all first responders seem to have a bit of a history. Yeah, you know what?
Don't we all?
Yeah. 28 years ago, I was working in the IT field for a major national retailer. And when my wife and I moved out to where we live, I saw an ad in the local paper for volunteer firefighters. I thought, well, that'd be kind of cool. So I applied, went through the interview process, went through the physical testing, and I got accepted. So being a volunteer firefighter in my local community, it was good. I mean, it gave me a taste of what the full-time career would be like. And I knew I wanted to help out my community, applied to the police service, almost got hired in the police service, but didn't. And along came the fire service. So like I said, I was a volunteer in my local community, started applying to surrounding fire departments for a full-time job. And I got hired by the Newmarket Fire Department, which is a community about 30 minutes north of Toronto. And the way Newmarket Fire started, you always started in dispatch. So at the time, Newmarket Fire was also dispatching 9 surrounding departments from a one-person dispatch center. So my first couple of years was in dispatch. And
is that not to interrupt you, but is that rare to do 9 different? That seems like a lot. That seems a lot.
No, it's not rare. If you look at you look at not every department is large enough to have their own dispatch abilities.
Okay.
So they generally will purchase those services from a department that does.
Gotcha.
So at the time, like you said, we were dispatching 1, 2, 3, 4, is it 9 different stations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different departments. Right. So that's where you know what, my first problematic incident occurred. And what I can say about that is there are just some things that you can never unhear. So I started out in dispatch, eventually got out on the floor, got assigned to a crew. I was on the crew that was the first crew in my department's second station. Was a firefighter for a while, became an acting captain. A neighboring department just south of us that we used to dispatch, the Aurora Fire Department, they found themselves without a fire chief and without a deputy fire chief. And we eventually, Newmarket and Aurora Fire Departments eventually amalgamated and created Central York Fire Services. Today, that's grown to a department of 160, thereabouts. Wow. 7 trucks. We're building our 5th station. So with being an acting captain in Central York, I eventually got promoted to captain. And being somewhat career driven, that wasn't really enough for me. And when I was eligible, I wrote to become an acting platoon chief. And I eventually became an acting platoon chief. That was about 7 years ago. And I've been an acting platoon chief ever since. So wow. That's 28 years of service.
Wow. So you're still in the profession then?
I've been off work for the last 2 years, since April of 2019 with dealing with an occupational stress injury.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm still employed, but I haven't been at work for, like I said, this April will be 2 years now.
Okay. And how are you doing?
You know what? Like I say to people, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not where I need to be, but I'm sure as hell glad I'm not where I was, because where I was not a good place. Yeah, you know what? I have good days and bad days. Fortunately for me, the good days definitely outnumber the bad days.
That's good.
But you know what? There's still some problematic calls that I'm dealing with in therapy. Like I'm sure you guys know that PTSD isn't just about the bad calls.
Right.
PTSD changes you as a person, and it's about sort of fixing the person as well as dealing with those bad memories.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm still in therapy. I've got an amazing therapist. I tell people she's the next to my wife and my daughter. She's the 3rd most important woman in my life right now.
That's awesome.
So and it really is. She really is, right? So yeah, I mean, weekly therapy still. I'm definitely making progress.
Nice. Have you tried any of the
EMDR?
EMDR, yes.
Absolutely. It's a godsend.
Okay.
For me at
cool.
least. Just to give you an example of how I describe it to people, it doesn't make the memories go away, but it takes the distress out of those memories. So that one problematic call I mentioned earlier about when I was in dispatch, that there are things you can never unhear. Before I went through therapy, I couldn't talk about that call at all without completely turning into a puddle of tears on the floor. Like I couldn't talk about it. And now I can talk about it. I mean, the memories are still there. The memories, if I choose to, and here's the good thing, if I choose to bring up the memory, as opposed to it coming to visit me, if I choose to bring up the memory, it's as if I just heard it happen. But there's no distress. And that's
amazing. Yeah, that's what
is because of EMDR.
Wow. Excellent. Good to hear, man. Good to hear.
Yeah. I call it like the 8th wonder of the world, at least in the therapy world.
Good.
Wow. So I gotta ask, man, were you always creative, or did you find creative resources later on?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what? I when I was a teenager, I used to write poetry, so there was a little bit of creativity there. You know what? As my kids were going through sports, as they were growing up, I used to do sports photography, so there's a little bit of creativity there. I've written a few during my time as the union president for my association. I wrote a few articles that were published in some firefighter magazines. So the writing was always still there. What really happened was, I guess, as part of my therapy, a lot of people journal. I tried journaling. It really didn't work for me because it tended to be me just documenting what I did in a day as opposed to what the true intent of journaling was. So journaling really didn't work, but writing did. And I've written a whole bunch of things that have been published on different mental health websites and platforms. Part of my therapy as well was coloring. A lot of people who go through, PTSD and depression or therapy for those, they'll do coloring because coloring activates a certain part of the brain. I like tried coloring. I had those adult coloring books. You know what? Part of my diagnosis, in addition to the severe PTSD and severe depression, was like I had OCD tendencies. Not enough to be diagnosed clinically, but they were there. And it would absolutely drive me nuts coloring outside the lines. Right? So the coloring didn't work. Now, having said that, I know my way around computers. I know my way around graphic design software. And one of the first pieces of art I did right at the very beginning of my journey was something I called Firefighter Jenga, which is a Jenga game. And I made that piece of art to try to illustrate what I felt my life felt like. Like it really did. My life in the early days felt like a Jenga game. And for your listeners, the Jenga game is the game of those wooden blocks that you stack up and you pull one out and you put it on top and you wait for the whole thing to come crumbling down.
Yeah.
That's
we own one.
That's exactly the way my life felt at the beginning. And I actually use that analogy when I talk with the intake person where I go for therapy. And you know what? And I was able to put what I was feeling into that piece of artwork. And it sort of just evolved from there. I knew.
So doing that art and stuff is actually therapeutic for you.
Absolutely. It's actually got two purposes to it. If you look at my artwork, like you guys, I feel it's important to educate people on, right? I found early on that even in my own department, there's a lot of people who should have known about PTSD and the symptoms who know nothing about it, right? So education is part of it. So if you look at my artwork, a good portion of my artwork deals with education or trying to come up with a way of graphically getting across something about an aspect of PTSD. So things like, flashbacks or like one of the latest ones I did, the frog in the pot. I mean, that one is a good analogy with PTSD where it sort of tends to accumulate so slowly that you're not even aware of it until you're overwhelmed with it. And that's sort of like the frog in the pot analogy where you put a frog in a pot, you turn the water on and it slowly boils to death and it doesn't know any different because the change is so slow, it's normal and it doesn't know that it's not normal. So so a lot of my artwork is meant to educate. There's 1, 2, 3, there's 4 or 5 pieces that I've done that, yes, they educate, but they sort of deal specifically with my problematic incidents. Right. So for example, I did one piece called "It's Not Always What You See." And it's a picture of a uniformed member in front of a dispatch console with sort of like above it of flames and a silhouette of a person in the flames and the reaper and things like that. And that one I did as it's educational, right? A lot of people, a lot of first responders still think, well, what do you mean? You weren't there. How can you be bothered by the call? And yet people in dispatching communications answering 911, they suffer from PTSD at the same rates as firefighters and police officers and corrections officers and paramedics. So I did that to educate, but it also was therapeutic for me because that actually dealt with one of my problematic calls as well. So yeah, my artwork is designed to educate, but also help me as well.
That's great.
Yeah, it's very powerful, man. Very powerful. I had a visceral reaction to it when I saw it, and I was like, "Wow, this is like really deep stuff, man."
You know what? That's what it's meant to do. It's meant to evoke an emotional reaction to get people thinking.
I love it.
You know what? My artwork isn't for everybody. It deals with a lot of dark topics.
Sure.
Right. But you know what? There was one of my pieces called Face to Face that I did. And it's a firefighter dancing with the Grim Reaper. And it's about, if this is your dance partner, make sure you lead.
Nice.
And
like
that one was
badass.
A lot of people liked that one, and it was going to be showcased in an online art gallery. And the board of directors thought it was just triggering. It may be, and they asked if, is there any chance you could maybe tweak it? And I said, no.
Good for you.
Unfortunately, dealing with PTSD and depression, it's a dark thing. I mean, when suicide is so prevalent, you can't tiptoe around it. You got to approach it head on, and you deal with it.
Good for you. Good for you.
I think I'm actually working on another art piece right now that will probably cause some visceral emotional reactions to some people. It deals specifically with suicide, first responder suicide. And I'll give you a hint. It's got a Reaper in it. It's got an angel beside an open pill bottle. The pills are all lined up and the words "help me," right? And there's in the background, there's I think I've got 7 different people all, with the finger in front of their mouth saying "shush." We don't talk about that. And basically it says, you know what? If you look at this image, causes you to be an uncomfortableness, then maybe you're part of the problem. And, if it causes an uncomfortable silence, maybe you're part of the problem. Or if looking at that image causes you to feel anger and disgust with me, the artist, for doing such a piece, then you are part of the problem, right? We have to normalize the conversation around mental health. We have to normalize the conversation around first responder suicide. And only by doing that will we make a difference. And maybe doing that will help us save one life. That's
Absolutely.
What it's about.
That's what it's about. Yep.
Yep. So that's the next art piece I'm working on.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that. I think you make an excellent point. And again, that's, I think what we try to do is part of that story, part of that subject matter is dark. Yep. So, you know what I mean? Let's talk about it, and maybe we can make it less dark. One of the things, we've always been pretty open and real and raw.
Yep.
And, what I noticed, this is kind of a little bit off topic, but what I noticed recently is, sometimes the environment and the culture we live in can obviously have a bigger effect on us than we know. And Will and I were just, one episode we were talking and suicide came up and he said, it's not an option until it's an option. And I had to stop and go, you are 100% right. You're right. And some people don't want to hear that. And, but it's like, he nailed it. That really stuck with me. And I'm like, he's 100% right.
I mean, for me, the in Ontario here in Canada, we've had a rash of police officer suicides. And you hear it all the time. Like, you never would have expected it. And they didn't reach out. Well, yeah, you know what? There's a reason why people don't reach out. First responders, at least, don't reach out. And a lot of it's because of the stigma. And to be honest with you, I was part of that stigma. Like I was impacted by that stigma when it came to my dark times, right? When I was diagnosed with PTSD and depression, I thought it took a lot of energy out of me trying to keep everything on the down low and quiet. And I thought, screw it. I'm putting it all out there.
Yeah. Because it makes it worse.
Yeah. But I didn't put it all out there. Yeah. I was open, honest, and public about, my battles with PTSD and depression and anxiety and OCD. But I wasn't open and public about just how dark it was for me. And like I said, June 2nd of 2019 was the day I made my decision about suicide. But the thing is, I didn't talk to anybody about that. I didn't reach out. I didn't even tell my wife or my therapist about my decision until 4 months later. And the reason why was because of stigma. I mean, stigma around mental health is it's out there, and we're slowly chipping away at it. But the stigma around suicide is 10 times worse. And the one thing, or one of the things that actually helped me step back from that point of no return was I thought a lot about a friend and coworker and a platoon mate who died by suicide. And I remember his funeral was absolutely incredible funeral, well attended, but there was something palpable that you could feel in the air at the funeral that nobody wanted to really talk about. Everybody knew what happened, but nobody wanted to talk about it. That's stigma, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I've been a victim of it as well, right?
In your opinion, like how, I know this is convoluted, but how, in your opinion, how can we attempt to decrease that? It's even, especially with amongst the first responders, police, fire,
We need to first of all, we need to educate. There's a lot of education still needed. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. But I think the more people we can get, the more first responders we can get to be open and public about their battles with mental health, the better it is at chipping away at that stigma, the better, how do I explain it? I talk about talking publicly to normalize, conversations around suicide. It's the same with mental health. I mean, I would love to see, sitting around the table in the lounge at the station, having dinner with the crew and shooting the shit. And I would love for it to be common for mental health to be part of that discussion. Right? The other challenge we need to have is that also needs to come from the top. And there are a lot of leaders of first responder organizations who maybe don't necessarily show the leadership that they should when it comes to mental health. I mean, when you look at things like sanctuary trauma being fairly common in first responder organizations, you know what? There's changes going on, absolutely changes for the better, that we're talking more about mental health, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. I mean, for example, my department, the last recruit class that we did was the first recruit class that they actually spent a day learning about mindfulness meditation, which is amazing.
It is.
The challenge, the problem I see though, is that a lot of organizations, and my own department is guilty of this, is they focus so much on getting the new people coming in that they forget about the old people who've been around for 20 years, who started in the suck it up buttercup culture. I mean, in my own department, the four of us that were off at the same time with PTSD, all four of us had over 20, 24 years of experience.
Wow.
Forgotten about.
You can't
right?
replace that experience either, though. In a like,
no.
you've got so much experience that it's impossible to replace that.
Even in my own department, the leadership, the chief, the deputy chiefs, they kept saying to the platoon chiefs and the after platoon chiefs, you need to look after the crews below you that are on your platoon. You need to look after the captains. You need to look after the firefighters. But nobody was looking upwards. Right? Like who was looking after the PCs, the platoon chiefs, and the active platoon chiefs?
Right.
And unfortunately, two of the four of us that were off at the same time were active platoon chiefs. Like I get it. We want to get the new people that when they're coming in to the service, but you can't forget about everybody else that's already there.
Great. Do you think that maybe, like, say if you and maybe like one or two other guys with your experience and you know, not only experience within the service, but life experiences, PTSD, you know, the mental health experiences, got together maybe and like tried to do like training, you know what I mean? Like a once a month type thing. And do you think that would help any?
Yes and no. Yes, it's a great idea. It's anything that we can do towards educating others on mental health is better than nothing. It also depends on the culture that's being manifested in the leadership as well. And I'll be totally honest with this one. I've been off 2 years now. I mean, my department is not that big. 160, I think we're just under 160 people. We're small enough that everybody knows everybody by name, right? I know the fire chief knows me. We've had a lot of discussions, a lot of debates. And like I said, I've been off, it'll be 2 years in April. I've yet to hear from him. And yet I'd been off 9 months. One of our firefighters got hurt at a fire, went to the hospital. And that very same day, all four of our senior officers visited that firefighter in the hospital that very same day. So what message does that send out to people who are looking? Physical injuries are more important than mental injuries. And the funny thing is, in my department, in the 2 years prior to that firefighter being injured, we only ever had two firefighters, total of two firefighters get sent to the hospital for injuries at calls. But in that same period of time, we had 4 people off battling PTSD, and we had 1 suicide, almost 2. So where is the problem? I mean, as a fire service, we do really, really well looking after our safety, our physical safety. We really do. We've got my department. We've got state-of-the-art breathing apparatus. We've got state-of-the-art bunker gear. Our equipment is state-of-the-art. I mean, we have policies and procedures that out the yin-yang that are all about safety, physical safety. We do a really good job at that, but we don't do a good job looking after the mental health side of things. And that's partly because of leadership, right? The example I like to tell people is when I first started therapy in February of 2019, I was still on the trucks, right? For a couple months, I was still at work. And I decided, as part of being public, I told my crew, I said, hey, guys, I'm in therapy for what's likely PTSD and depression. Well, PTSD. And the one guy on my crew who is on our peer support team, I remember his words exactly to me. His exact words were, oh yeah, we noticed a difference in you almost 2 years ago, but we just chalked it up to you being the grumpy old guy near the end of your career. And right then and there, that said to me, holy crap, he's on our peer support team. The expectation is you at least have an idea.
Right.
And that's what made me realize, you know what? There's a lot more education that needs to be done.
Wow.
Right?
Scary.
Here's another really good one. One of the other things I do now is peer support. And I did that because my experience with my own department's peer support team was a bit of a joke. The person who heads our peer support team, he reached out to me within the first couple of weeks of me being off work. Hadn't heard anything from him. Reaches out to me in June of 2019, but not to see how I'm doing, but to ask me if I could reach out to somebody else who'd been off for a while.
Jesus.
Like, okay, fine. Reaches out to me again in October. And I had an idea. I had a really good idea why he decided to reach out to me in October. And I came out and I asked him, I said, why are you reaching out to me now? Like, I don't understand. Like you've been pretty quiet. You haven't reached out to me. You're reaching out to me now. Like, why? And his exact words to me were, sorry to have bothered you. You won't hear from me again. Click. And he hung up on me. It's like, okay. This is a guy who's heading our department's peer support team. Yeah, maybe that's not the way peer support should be done.
Yeah, I've never heard of that tact before. I never heard of just giving up on your,
No, and you know what? It's what motivated me to get into peer support. And now I'm a facilitator for an organization called Wings of Change up here it's a peer support group. It's online, right? It's been online right now since the pandemic. We have an organization up here in Ontario called Boots on the Ground. It's a 1-800 number that first responders can call for peer support 24/7, 365. And
awesome.
I'm a volunteer peer support person for them now. So because it's about, doing peer support right. It's about helping other first responders. It's about using my experiences to maybe help others. And like I tell people, it's also therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that how do I say it? To be a good peer support person, you need to be very empathetic and compassionate and show, compassionate towards people. They're all the things that seem to go by the wayside when you end up dealing with PTSD. So if I can learn to be empathetic and compassionate towards others, holy crap, I can learn to do that towards myself and show myself self-compassion, right? And self-empathy. And that's not a strong point for a lot of first responders dealing with PTSD.
Will, did you hear that?
Yeah, self-love. Here we go again.
That's Will right there in a nutshell,
it is.
man.
Yeah, man. You hit all those things right there, and they were all.
You know what? That's the reality of it. I mean, I remember one of the homework assignments my therapist had me do early on was to do one of those adult coloring books, like do a page in it, and purposely go outside the lines. And then write down all my thoughts as I'm doing it, and the inner dialogue. And when I was done, and I'm reading through it, it's like I couldn't believe the things that I was saying about myself to myself. That's what PTSD does to you, right? It changes your view of you.
Yeah,
and I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was saying things to myself that nobody should have said to them. That's part of PTSD as well, right? That's what I try to get across to people. It's more than just dealing with the bad memories. It's about fixing the person who's been changed as well.
Well, it's about the self-hatred that you didn't realize you had as much of until you're staring at it in the mirror and it's laughing at you.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm getting better at it. I'm still, I can tell when I'm a little off because I tend to use the word fuck a little bit more often, and usually it's towards myself. Like, you fucking idiot. What were you thinking? And things like, So yeah, you know what? It's it's all part of the journey.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So when you started writing, man, so was it easier for you to just write down, like, did you come up with like story ideas for your pieces? Is that what sort of prompted the, like, because you said journaling didn't work for you, and I can understand that, because sometimes it becomes, you know, the to-do list, or it becomes the
Yep.
wish list, or the woulda, coulda, shoulda list, whatever it is sometimes. So I was just wondering, like, when you came up with ideas for the stories, was that like part of the artistic journey? Are you like reading one of these art, like the Artist Way, like is a big one here in the States, and
You know
it's like
what? Like I
a
said,
program
I
about self-healing through writing
yeah,
and stuff.
I started journaling. Like I said, my therapist got me to start journaling. It didn't work. You know, I'm a first responder. I've been a captain and an active platoon chief. It's about writing reports. So when I journal, it turned into be more about just documenting what I did for the day, as opposed to writing down about thoughts and feelings and emotions and things like that. So the journaling didn't quite work, but I knew I wanted to educate people, and I wrote about aspects of my own journey that sort of gave me the inspiration to write about certain things. So, like, for example, one of the articles I wrote that was published on a platform up here called Sick Not Weak was an article I wrote called "The Hollow Words I Live By," and that was inspired by the fact that I remember talking to my wife one day, and part of the way PTSD plays out with me right now is that I have a hard time labeling my emotions, and I have a hard time feeling emotions. I'm fairly emotionally numb. So I don't feel a positive emotions much at all. And I got thinking, how many times do we use words, positive emotion words, in our everyday speech that are meaningless? You know, like, how often do I say, hey, I'm happy to meet you, when I meet somebody new, but I'm not really happy? Or, you know, you'll say things like, you know, I really enjoyed that meal that you cooked for me. Thanks, but I don't really feel joy. They're hollow words that we use as filler words, and you say them because they're expected to be said. You know, they seem to be the appropriate word to say in that sentence. So there's an example of something that so inspired me to write an article. And that's what I did. I ended up writing an article called "Hollow Words That I Live By." Right? Things like I wrote an article, a couple of articles. One was actually published in a book, an anthology that was put together called "The Lemonade Stand," and they took 20 stories from first responders and military about their battles with, or not necessarily about mental health. They're all related to mental health, but it was about their battles and how they took something that was really bad, you know, like took lemons and made lemonade out of it. And my story was one of them. So I wrote for that. You know, I wrote an article that was published in another book called Not Canceled. And that one really wasn't about mental health. It was my first real attempt at writing a non-mental health related story that sort of had mental health stuff in it. And it was about, the book was, had 40 different short stories written by authors about things that weren't canceled because of the pandemic. So I wrote an article, you know, a short story about that. That was published. You know, I've written some articles on things like 10 things I wish people knew about PTSD. Like throughout my journey, I've learned, you learn things, right? And there's things that, you know, there's 10 things that I've learned, you know, so far. And I wrote an article about the things that I've learned. I wrote an article about the 10 things that I wish people knew about PTSD. You know, that it's usually not like it's portrayed in the movies, right? right? It's it's not like I'm a walking time bomb ready to go off. It's
Rob.
right? So
Hey, Rob, are these things on your website that people
Yep.
can go to and read?
yeah, the only ones that aren't on my website are the two that were published in books. And you know what, I wrote, you can see it, the first paragraph, but you know what, I didn't think it was right to take the story that was written to be published in two books and actually put it up on my website for everybody to read. Like, you want the people to go buy the books.
Sure.
Right, but yeah, everything that I've written is on my website, with links to, you can look at my writings, my artwork's on my website. Right. So yeah, that's how I sort of got into the writing. It sort of evolved from journaling to using it as another way of educating, and just getting points across about PTSD and depression that people don't really understand.
That's great.
So,
I think that's how we have to do it.
yeah,
I think education is the big key element, for sure.
Absolutely. Like I said, we need to, when you hear first responders make comments to people in dispatch about how can that call bother you? You weren't even there. It's like that there says to me, they need to be educated. They need to be educated on how PTSD affects people, what trauma is, how trauma impacts people, what it means to be overwhelmed. It's not just what you see.
Right. Yep. Exactly. For sure.
So, yeah. So like I said, I use the artwork and the writing as a means of educating, but it's also therapeutic for me. I mean, when you're focused on doing a piece of artwork, it's kind of nice. I put the ear pods in and start playing some music, usually Pink Floyd. and it helps keep you grounded in the here and now. It helps keep you, I like to think of it as distracted focus. You're so focused on the thing that you're doing that it helps distract your mind from, the monkey brain, from ruminating about things. And so it's a nice way of focusing your attention instead of being wild all over in your head. Same with the writing, right? It helps me at least focus. Right. So yeah, so again, it's used to educate and has therapeutic value for me as well.
All right, I gotta ask you right now, because I'm staring at the two pictures behind you.
Oh,
is that like a Zen circle?
Yes.
Okay, and is that like something about meditation on the other side of the wall?
Yep.
Okay.
It actually says, let that shit go. So yeah, you know what? I meditate. This was an area I set up in my bedroom. That's sort of a meditation corner. At the beginning, in the beginning, I scheduled out meditation every day. Now it's more as needed, and it's more on the go, sort of. I'll be sitting down by the lake, for example. I'll go for a walk and sit down at the lake, and I'll be looking out at the lake, and it's like, okay, I'm here. I'm going to meditate for 5, 10, 15 minutes. And so now it's not as orchestrated or as scheduled out. But yeah, I think it looks kind of nice.
Yeah, it's awesome. Did you paint that circle? Is that your circle?
No. That's something I found online and printed off just to be able to post something there.
Okay.
And there's nice plants above, like fake leaves and all that. It creates a nice environment.
I have a little altar downstairs off our living room that has become a mess lately.
Yeah.
It's got a Buddha. It's got a little Jesus inside the broken Buddha's head up top.
Yeah.
It's got a bunch of stuff on it, man.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, no, it's great that you carved out a spot. Did you find that meditation has been helpful? Is that why you keep going back to it, or do you need something more moving? Do you practice martial art or anything like that?
No, you know what? No, I don't do martial arts. You know what? I'm going to say, yeah, absolutely. That the meditation helps. I mean, it helps you focus on your breathing. At least for me, it helps you focus on your breathing. And breathing, I mean, we all know breathing is so important in anxiety and dealing with anxiety and recovering from flashbacks and recovering from dissociation. And so breathing is really important, and meditation helps you learn to breathe. But it helps for me. I find meditation helps, I guess, in the meditation world, when they call it your monkey mind or your monkey brain, you know, your thoughts are just all over the place and it's chaotic, and you know, it's almost like you've got that hamster wheel with the hamster running inside your head. And meditation is a nice break from that. So that's how it's helped me. In addition to I guess the physical benefits of it. I mean, there's tons of studies that show that meditation helps reestablish those neural pathways in the brain, and your listeners may not know this, but you know, trauma physically changes your brain, right? It increases the volumes in the amygdala, which is part of the brain responsible for fight or flight and your emotions. You know, decrease volumes in your hippocampus, which is responsible for memory. You know, decrease volumes in your prefrontal cortex, which is that part of the brain that's responsible for rational thought and the higher level, you know, thinking.
Yeah,
and
it rewires the whole power amp, man.
Yep. So meditation helps to rebuild those neural pathways. So I found it's helped.
Definitely. It's got a bunch of positive things, like you said.
The now as for martial arts, no, I don't do martial arts. The one thing I do a lot is, you know, I get out in nature. I hike, backpack, canoe. I like riding my bike. I got a mountain bike back in 2019, and I mean, I'm even riding it in the winter here, which is when I can. So
you got some big knobby tires on there.
You know what? I didn't go for the big balloon tires. I just kept my standard mountain bike, because I figure in the winter where I ride, there's bike paths, and fortunately my community, they plow them in the winter and they salt them. Cool. So the bike paths tend to be pretty clear. So awesome. I don't need the big knobby balloon tires and right. I just stick with my standard mountain bike. And I mean, I think in January I did total of 160 kilometers on the bike.
Wow.
Right. And, you. Yeah, you know what? I just plug away at it. And so that's part of my journey as well. And right. I had a friend ask me a while ago, what do I think about when I go for my bike rides? Because sometimes, especially in the summer, I'll do at least one long bike ride a week. And when I say long, I'm talking like 50 to 60 kilometers.
Okay.
Which is, I'm not sure what that is in miles. But somebody asked me, what do you think about it? And I remember going for one bike ride, actually thinking about it. And it's like, I really don't think about much. It's pretty, other than, you know, the standard, you're looking for idiot car drivers not watching out for you.
And you know what, that I always equate that stuff, because I ride motorcycles. So I always equate that it's like meditation for me, because you're actually focusing on what you're doing. You're grounded in the moment.
Yep.
So
and that's what I said to my friend. I said, it's very mindful for me. It's like mindful meditation.
It is.
Absolutely.
And people don't get that. They, unfortunately, you know, I don't know if it's our culture and society that pushes, like, you know, you need to go out and buy these yoga pants and sit in a certain position, and that's all great, but you don't need to do that. And I think people, again, are misinterpreting what it is.
Mindfulness, it sounds kind of cliche. Mindfulness is a mindset. It's not a physical position. It's not a, right. It's you can eat your dinner mindfully.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I mean, there's a course that I took just recently called the Happiness Trap. It's all about people's view of happiness, and it's about using acceptance and commitment therapy to break away from the idea that you need to be happy all the time and happy is always positive, to the point to get you to realize that happiness isn't about that. Happiness is about having a rich and fulfilling life. That's what it's about. And you use acceptance and commitment therapy to help you achieve that. And yeah, one of the exercises was eat dinner mindfully.
Sure.
And being the firefighter that I am, I usually eat dinner really, really fast. Right? Like that's one of the curses of being a first responder, right? So it was an effort, a real hard effort to slow down, to take your time to really think about the taste of the food that you just took off the fork. And yeah, so you can eat mindfully, you can walk mindfully. So it's a mindset and a way of thinking. It's not how you physically sit to do it.
Yep, I agree.
So
not to mention the fact I can't cross my legs anyway. I can get one leg up.
For our listeners out there, 60 kilometers is about 37.1 miles.
Okay.
So, yeah,
there you go.
That's a long ride today.
That is a long ride on a bike. Yeah, it is.
I did in 2020, I did a total of, I think it was 1,200 kilometers on my bike.
Wow. So, yeah.
Wow.
1,400 miles, man.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Like, not all at once. Not all at once.
That's a lot.
No, but still, yeah.
For the summer.
You know what?
What part of Ontario are you in, if you don't mind? Like, how far, like, what's your weather like? Is it like ours?
Right now,
we've got more snow.
We've got, you know what? We got probably, I'm trying to convert now, probably about in my area. I live in Ajax, which is just east of Toronto.
Okay.
So in Ajax, we have roughly 2 inches of snow on the ground.
Okay.
And it's minus 11 degrees Celsius. But beautiful blue skies. I'm looking out the window.
Yeah.
Beautiful blue skies. The sun is out. So it really depends on whereabouts in Ontario you are. My daughter lives in St. Catharines,
okay,
which is west of Toronto, near Niagara Falls.
Okay.
And yeah, they got dumped on last night with lots of snow. Right. My son lives in Barrie, north of Toronto.
Okay.
Like north of Lake Simcoe. And they get hit with snow a lot too. So it varies. But it's put it this way. I mean, I can ride my bike in the bike paths in the winter.
Yeah, that's cool.
That is awesome that they take the community part of it that serious, that they keep them snow, they keep snow removal from there.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. It's a benefit.
It's funny. It's something about Canada. We always meet new friends, and they turn out to be from up that way. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's everybody's got like
cool,
the big mental health community up that way or what, but
yeah, you know what? There is a fairly big push for mental health. Like we have a national organization called CMHA, Canadian Mental Health Association. And for the last 2.5, 3 months, they've been doing commercials on TV about suicide.
Oh, wow.
And their campaign is not today. Right. And it's, they start off with a couple of stats, or the one commercial has, an older gentleman sitting around his kitchen table, and the camera sort of pans around him. And as the camera's panning around him, there's people who are important in his life saying, not today, not today. So yeah, there's a fairly big push for mental health, nowhere near where it needs to be. I mean, we have the Bell Let's Talk Day that happens every January, which is good and bad. It's great that we're talking about it on one day, but mental health is a 365 day a year issue.
Yeah, we say that all the time here, man.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's interesting, the Bell Let's Talk Day, literally 2 weeks after Bell Let's Talk Day this year, they ended up laying off 300 people across the country. And so Bell is taking a pretty big beating right now over that.
Oh, I can imagine.
So yeah.
Wow.
So we appreciate you so much being on, man.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
You know what? I appreciate the opportunity. Like I said, if us talking about it can make a difference in one person's life, then it's worth it.
Absolutely, man.
You know, I've always said that I went public for, if me going public means one person asked just one question to learn more about mental health, then it was worth it. If it me going public and talking about it, causes just one person to reflect on their own mental health, then it was worth it. Or if me going public and talking about it openly and authentically causes one person who's already battling their own mental health issues to not feel alone, then it's worth it.
Yeah,
right?
that's awesome, man. I think that's right in line with what we do.
You know what? I remember seeing a quote recently, and I don't remember who the quote is attributed to, but the quote was, "When we recover loudly, we keep others from dying quietly."
Yep.
I like that.
That means a lot.
I think I just put that up on our Instagram not that long ago.
Yeah, that's us, man.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's about taking the shit that I've gone through, taking the dark times, taking the brushes with suicide, and making sure that I went through all that for a reason, not just because, So, it's about using the things that you've experienced to help others.
You got the mandate.
I mean,
right. That's what we call it here. We call it a mandate.
It's a good mandate.
Same way. Yeah, it's absolutely. Thank you so much for being here, man. We finish up the show with like 3 questions at the end.
Yeah.
And one of them is kind of silly, but I like asking it. So Timmy's going to ask you the first question though.
Do you have a favorite or least favorite word?
Favorite or least favorite word? Well, I've got a least favorite word, which I'm sure your listeners are anticipating me saying: stigma. I absolutely fucking hate it.
Nice. I'll pay for that plug.
There you go. And my favorite word? Okay. It's my life revolves around mental health right now. So resilience. That's my favorite word.
Nice.
Excellent.
Very nice.
So There you go. There's a favorite word and a not favorite word.
Excellent.
I like them, and that's useful stuff right there. So I'm going to ask you this silly question, and it's not silly to me, and it's not silly to a lot of people because some people take it very seriously. But cat, dog, or other?
Dog. Right away, dog.
Yeah, dog. Yeah.
I've got a 95-pound, 5.5-year-old German Shepherd.
Oh.
Wow, that's a big one.
Yeah,
Woo.
He's a big boy. He's working lines German. He's actually, the father is right from Germany.
Wow.
He's working lines. So he's high drive. The Ontario Provincial Police, the litter that he came from, there was 3 males, and the OPP, the Ontario Provincial Police, wanted all 3 males. Fortunately, the breeder, who also works for the OPP, doesn't agree is not necessarily aligned with the training philosophies that the OPP uses for their canines.
Yeah.
So she refused to sell to them. So yeah, he is my third German Shepherd, and he is the best German Shepherd I've had. He is scary intelligent. Like he's unbelievable.
What's his name?
His official name is Jakota von Immerstark.
Wow.
Jai apostrophe Coda, Koda, Jakota. Von Immerstark is the name of the kennels. We just call him Coda. That's his call sign, Coda.
Nice.
Sometimes we call him shithead. Sometimes we call him pain in the ass. Absolutely love him. And the best part is he is become an unofficial therapy dog for me, like an unofficial service dog. Like he seems to really be able to pick up on when I'm off, right? And he'll do things. He'll come over and he'll just sit in front of me and put his paw up on my leg, and it's like, oh, okay, you're obviously picking something up that I'm not even aware of yet, right?
Right.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Amazing.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, they're
so it's not a funny question.
Super intelligent, super intelligent animals, man. Super intelligent.
Yeah.
Super empathetic too, especially that breed.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Which I think makes them the quality like service dog that they are, because they are so hyper attuned to energy and to that stuff, man.
He's
absolutely incredible. Absolutely love him.
So if there was something that you would like to that you could do, or that you would like to see done for mental health as a whole, what would it be? If there was no restraints, you could just pick something that you would like to see done.
I gotta be careful how I word this one. How about this? Looking specifically at first responder organizations, I'd like to have the ability to be able to remove those at the top who are roadblocks to mental health. I think that was a polite way of saying.
Yes. We don't want to get you in trouble or anything.
Well, we know that it starts with the culture.
Absolutely.
It starts with the culture of and leadership. And there's such a lack of leadership these days in so many organizations.
Yeah.
And so many, and just in general, like overall, seems to be like the disease of the 21st century nowadays or something. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's what, if I had the superpower, the ability to do whatever I wanted, it would be remove those roadblocks at the top to mental health, because that would have an impact on the organizations. That is one of the best things that would help the most number of people.
Yeah, I like it.
So
fits.
There you go.
Wow. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you again. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on the show and chat about mental health, and it's obviously something that's near and dear to my heart.
Awesome. Yeah,
as well as ours. Yeah,
as well as ours, man. That's why we're, that's why we find the connections, man.
Hopefully now we're one conversation closer, right?
Hopefully, like I said, if our conversation today just makes one person reflect on their own mental health, it's worth it. Absolutely worth it.
Well said.
Rob, thank you so much for what you do, man.
And you guys as well. I mean, it's the one thing I'm learning in my journey is there's a small community of like-minded individuals who are trying to make a difference. And yeah, I'm just one of those people. You guys are part of that.
Thank you.
That community as well. And
yes, thank you.
If we keep doing what we keep doing, sooner or later it'll make a difference.
Absolutely, man.
Yes, sir.
So for that, I thank you for the opportunity to come talk to you guys today, and I thank you guys for what you're doing as well.
Great. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.
Rob Leathen and everybody, thank you very much for being on, Rob. So until next time, man, we'll see you on the flip side. Be well.
Be safe.
Be
Above.